Amazing. Let's go. So, Renate has been helping corporates with financial planning, trust accounting, and business restructuring since 2001. She has saved companies tens of thousands of dollars in tax penalties, systemized businesses for optimal operation, and ensured the right staff are in the right positions. Renate is a Nobel Prosperity holder, and today she's going to teach you how to get the truth behind the numbers. So here is Renate Jute, and before she jumps on screen, I need to remind her to switch her screen. Okay.
Thanks, Candace. And hello, everyone. Geez, I get so excited when I see people so excited about what they're doing. And I feel that way about numbers. I hear Candace say she is petrified of numbers and breaks out in a sweat and in hives when we talk numbers, or used to at least. And for me, it is the opposite. I think as long as I'm in a dark corner with a calculator or a tax book or any book about numbers and calculations, I'm in my happy space. But I've learned that for the most part, not everyone shares that value on numbers. And I thought maybe when I was approached to talk to you guys today, I thought, let's talk about the real truth in the numbers. And as Candace said, let me just move my screen over and then I can share my screen with you guys. There we go. And off we go. So, as I said, truth in numbers. And I think this image to me, when I saw this, I thought, yeah, I think for many people, this is probably what happens when we talk about numbers. This is the image that happens immediately. But for me, it's not just the numbers. It is when we look at our relationship with and our understanding of the numbers in our business. When we get that, we understand how that will define and impact our future. Because often when we don't understand the numbers and we have a less than ideal relationship with the numbers, it really hampers our future in our business. And it doesn't really aid the decision-making process. And hopefully, with this talk today, we can bridge that gap a little bit. So off we go. So what is it that we think the numbers tell us about the business? And often when I start dealing with business owners, when business owners approach me to assist them in their businesses, we need to fix something. Either something's not working, or it's not growing, or the numbers aren't right. We think we're going to see this. This is what it's going to tell us. We're going to look at the profits and losses and the income statement. And as we know, that income statement is the document that tells us all the money that's been coming in. And that could be from sales. So it could be taxable income. It could be non-taxable income. It's all the money that comes in. And I've also learned through the years, I don't really speak debits and credits. That is for the accountants. I talk about money in and money out. And once we understand the money that came in and the money that left the business, what is that? Is there a tax attached to that, or is there no tax attached to it? And for those of you that are dialing in from South Africa, we have, of course, many, many, many tax rules. And I'm sure for everyone all over the world, we've got many tax rules. Then we look at the cash flow. Now, cash flow, in short, really is how much cash is left. So we've got the income, we've got the expenses, but cash flow is how much money at the end of the day is left in my bank account. And often people think, oh, well, as long as I know what that tells me, I'm in a good position. We've got sales or revenue. We've got expenses. In other words, how much are things costing me? We've got our stock levels. We've got our balance sheet. Now, remember, that's the document that will tell us what assets we have and what liabilities are attached to those assets. So what stuff do I have and how much is that stuff costing me? I'm talking about stuff that is taking longer than 12 months. So it would be buildings, it may be motor vehicles, that would be my balance sheet, it may be my computer equipment. It is things that does not make up stock, and generally it would be things that the debt that I would not pay in the next 12 months. Then the debts and the taxes, I've lumped that together because for many business owners, that goes into one block, bad stuff. So the debts of the business and the taxes as a result. But if we think about it, often we may need those debts in order to produce, to purchase, to grow. And when are taxes due and payable? When pretty much there's been a profit. The problem is that often we have a profit in the numbers, but we don't see the profit in the bank account. There's no cash flow, but our accountant is telling us we've had a profit and we need to pay tax with money that comes from where? And that's the problem. And then, of course, we also think that the numbers can tell us what the economy is doing and who else we can blame for whatever else is going wrong in our business. And so these are the things that we think the numbers will tell us. This is just some of the things. I'm sure there's many others. But you understand now that often it's a very narrow focus. It's what our accountants look at. Now, what I also want to say here is often when I've met with people over the years, they'll say to me, yes, but these things you're telling me, why is my accountant not telling me this? Or why didn't my accountant tell me this? Now, two things I want to point out for you when it comes to accountants. And please remember, I have had accounting firms for several years. I've employed accountants for many years. The first thing we need to remember, an accountant, if we look at what is it an accountant does, an accountant sets to record historical data. So what does that mean in layman's terms? This person will put on paper for you so that you can see what did happen, stuff that happened already in the past. Now, it may give you an indication of what could happen going forward, provided nothing changed from what happened already. Okay. So it's almost like when your financial advisor says to you, if we invest in this, we are saying that we could possibly have this return on investment because history showed this. I'm not very comfortable with that. Purely because when we're talking about historical data, there are certain indicators, provided nothing changes. So that's the first thing. My accountant sets to record historical data. The other thing is, why do I bring this person into my business? We give them a mandate. The accountant's mandate, for the most part, is the following. Accountant, please make sure that my books are up to date, whatever that may mean for you. Make sure that my taxes are up to date and I don't get into trouble with the tax man. Make sure that you save me as much tax as possible. And where there's VAT applicable, make sure that that's up to date. So basically, keep me out of trouble with the tax man and make sure that you save me as much tax money. So again, a very narrow focus. Now, joy upon joy, my passion is to sit and do research for the most part. I do a lot of training and I go and find things that can improve. Long gone are my days of sitting with accounting firms where we are dealing with historical data. You need the historical data, certainly, to understand what happens going forward. So we now have an idea of what we think the numbers tell us. But let's see how accurate it is. In other words, how accurate is what we think the numbers tell us. It may tell us where we're leaking money. So when we can compare these numbers and we can match it to what happened before and we've got our budgets, It could tell us that, certainly. Yes, it will tell us what our profit margin is. It will also maybe tell us, is our profit margin up? Has it gone down? Where are we with our profit margin? It could tell us how close we are to the budget. So you see how those things all work together. Are we leaking money? Are we matching the budget? If we are going off budget, what are we doing about it? Why are we going off budget? May tell us, are we meeting our production requirements? So we need to produce X. Are we matching that requirements? What do we need to match those requirements? What could happen? I mean, if all of a sudden we are importing a certain part and we cannot get that particular part, it will impact our production. So yes, the production numbers could show me that we're not meeting our production, but what will be the knock-on effect on other figures? So we need to also understand that we cannot just look at it in isolation. It may even tell us if we need to apply for finance, or if we already have finance, where are we with that finance? Are we in a position where we can perhaps pay that finance sooner? Can we settle the debt? Is it even worth our while settling the debt? So often I've got clients coming to me and go, you know what, I just want to settle this debt. I want to get it off my books. But when you go and assess it, there's two things that come up. Okay, I understand that you want to get rid of this debt. But if you've had the debt for a certain period of time, chances are you've already paid the majority of the interest. So settling the debt sooner now has no benefit. In other words, whether you now pay the balance of this debt for the period still out there, or whether you pay it sooner, there's no physical coin benefit. In other words, you won't save any money from paying it sooner. That's the one thing we need to consider. Or the other thing is, but if I now take this lump sum of money and I settle that debt, where am I taking this money from? What am I taking it out of? And how will that impact other business decisions I need to make? Yes, I may have the money lying in an account now, but can I not use that money more wisely elsewhere? Okay. It may also tell us, are we in trouble with the taxman? Now, one thing we've learned over the years, and I'm sure any one of you may have learned this, using the taxman's money is a very expensive exercise. If you pay your taxes late, if you short pay your taxes, you will pay penalties. You will pay interest on those penalties. And it can become extremely costly. Now, in South Africa, and I'm sure in many of the other countries, you will have a similar rule. But in South Africa, it's called the in duplum rule. And the in duplum rule says this: when I have a debt, a certain amount, that is referred to as capital. When I charge interest on this capital amount, my interest component on this capital may never exceed the capital amount. So if I've got a capital, if I've got a debt of 100,000 Rand, and I charge interest on this, the ceiling of that interest I might charge is 100,000. Then it stops. That's the in duplum rule. I may never exceed my initial capital. Okay. However, my friends, this rule doesn't exist for our taxman here in South Africa, for the South African Revenue Services. And like I say, for other countries, this may very well be the same rule. I just don't know what your rule would be called in your country. So what does that mean? If you owe SARS money, if you owe your taxman money, and you have penalties. So how does penalties and interest work? I owe SARS 100 Rand. They charge me a penalty for short or late payment. Let's say that penalty is 100 Rand. On that 100 Rand, they then charge the interest. And that interest is then calculated in some instances daily, in some instances weekly, in some instances monthly. You see, that's where the interest runs. In certain instances, and I certainly have dealt with this in my past, your interest, your penalties can far outweigh your capital. I've seen cases where it became 3 times the initial debt. So we don't want to be where we owe the taxman money. No, no, no. Very dangerous place to be. And certainly when we have the numbers, we could see this. Another thing we could see, and this is just an example, did the sales team reach their numbers? Now, this could go for anything, any target I put out there. Did whoever meet the numbers that we set out? So that would also be an indication. But again, so we saw the numbers and we had quite a narrow scope. We then saw, okay, but how accurate is what we think the numbers tell us? And we broadened it a little bit. So it's like little onion rings. We had the little heart, and then we had another layer. And these are now where we go with our deductions. But then, this is what is a bit more important. And this is, I think, the space that I play in and what I understand so well. And this is the reality of what the numbers tell us in our business. Numbers is data. Numbers gives us data. And for me, literally what happens in my head, man, I love me a little number. Nothing excites me more than reams and reams of numbers and data. Because for me, the minute I can see a list of numbers and data, it's like a movie starts playing in my head. And like music starts playing. Oh, I love it so much. I can just literally see the story. I can see what is happening there. These numbers tell me certain things. The first thing it tells me is that the outcomes and the results are decisions and action based. So what am I saying with that? Is the numbers, although we are seeing numbers on a paper, those numbers got there by virtue of our decisions and actions. It's merely for me, at the end of the day, an indication of what's happening. It's the outcome. It's the end result. It's like when the gun fires and the guy jumps off and he runs. When he breaks through the winner line, you know, when he breaks through the lint at the end and he's the winner of the race. That's what the data tells me. It is not that the whole race. For me, it is the end result. I can see from those numbers, reverse engineering, hold on, what was it? Why did we get here? And that's what we sometimes need to unpack. So we are now in a different layer of this onion. So, and sometimes we become stable blind because we're so caught up in the business. And I know a very valuable lesson that I've learned through my years of my interaction with real entrepreneur has been working on your business is so important. We can't always just be in there. You know that picture of the duck all serene on top and at the bottom, feet are going like mad. You know, so if we are always just feet going like mad in the water, we don't get the picture, serene picture on the top. We don't get the helicopter view to understand, hold on, what is actually happening here? And it's hard. It's difficult to sometimes acknowledge, hold on, I'm with my back against the wall here because I've made certain decisions. And the problem is sometimes we are forced to make decisions and we have to choose the lesser of two evils. We don't wake up in the morning and go, what is the worst decision I can do for my business today? What is the absolute worst thing I can do today? Let me go with that. Not one of us wake up in the morning and go, yeah, let me see how many toes I can step on. But sometimes life happens, business happens, and entrepreneurs have to make decisions on their feet. You have to tap dance, you have to think on your feet, you have to be agile, you have to be able to just think, and you do become fatigued. So where I can see, when I look at these numbers and I look at the data, I can determine two very clear things, if I can call it that, two criteria, I suppose. The one is the danger zones, and the other one's the upscaling potential. And these two things are not necessarily either or. They can work very much together. They can work against one another. You can have the one in a business and not the other. You can have, at this point, we're only in survival. At this point, we're only in upscaling. But I've often seen, when I look at these things, they actually go very much, for me, in my mind, hand in hand. So although the business owner and the team may not see a danger zone, what I'm often able to understand from this movie I see, from the story the numbers tell me, is that there is a potential here, that we're on that teetering. At the moment, we're not seeing it yet. But if it carries on like this, the if this, then that, then we are going to start treading on thin ice. So whilst it's not currently a problem, I can pick up that something's soon going to become a problem here. And of course, for upscaling, people will say, but I'm struggling to step up. I'm struggling to upscale. I'm struggling to get to the bigger thing. The reason you're struggling to get to the biggest thing may very well be because you haven't realized that this, where we are on thin ice, because it's not a real glaring danger zone yet, it's hampering the progress. It's hampering the upscaling. Okay. So I just want to also, I'm mindful of your time. So the danger zones and the upscaling potential, why I put these, the money, the people, the client services and the resources here, is because, again, often we think, okay, figures, money, it's the only thing it can tell me. But it's not true. So yes, certainly, if we go back, what did the numbers tell us? It gave us all those things in figures. Then it was like, okay, well, how true was it really? How accurate was what I thought? Okay, we've tied it back to the numbers. Yes, we do have a profit loss situation. Maybe we do need more money. We are struggling to meet production. But why may it be that we are struggling to meet production? Is it a money thing? Is it a resources thing? The resources may very well be that our software is outdated. Our manufacturing equipment is outdated. Things like that. For instance, I've dealt with businesses that are in manufacturing. And when you ask them, okay, but hold on, when last were these machines serviced, like properly serviced? It's like, well, we service them when they break. Okay, but hold on. What is the downtime when something breaks? Is there not a way that one can stagger things where you have a always on situation as opposed to a breakdown situation? That, that you can do better planning. Or if we have a certain, I'm just going back to production, if we have a certain unit, at what point, what is the lifespan of this particular unit? And at what point do we need a new one? At what point is this thing going to reach its end of life? What does that look like? How have I made provision for replacement? What will the trade-in value be? Will this even have a trade-in value? Have I made a budget provision for bringing in a new thing? What would be the finance agreements? What would be required of my business to even obtain a finance agreement? And again, it brings us back to all these things. And you won't see those in just today's numbers. You need to understand the numbers so that you can understand, well, remember that when I said to you, where we go and look at our assets and our liabilities, and it tells me the things that we, for instance, that you depreciate over a period of time. So our buildings, our cars, our computers, that's where you would see that. And I can see there, how old is this thing? Over what period has it been depreciated? And also often what businesses do, they buy an item and they go, oh, no, I can depreciate this every year. So remember, we write down a certain value. And in the back of their mind, they go, I've got this depreciation, which matches against my taxable income. So I've got it as a tax deduction, which means I make less tax profit. But they forget they've already written this asset down to zero. So next year, I don't have that benefit anymore. What's just happened? I've got a higher profit, but I've got lesser income and the machine is less usable. So these things again tie together. And client service, where am I going to see client service? I will see client service when I see that I keep filling my new client bucket. You know, I keep having to throw new clients in the bucket, but as fast as I'm throwing them in, they're falling out the bottom. What's happening here? Either there's a problem with my quality control, or there's a problem with my client service. Why is it that I'm losing clients? Now, I'm not talking about a buy once and go away. I'm talking about where I'm supposed to retain clients. Is this a business that is supposed to retain clients? And even that you can see in the numbers, because companies will have a certain, how can I call this, a lifespan, a flavor of the week lifespan, where people will deal with you for a certain period of time and then you fall out of favor. If you fall into that, how do we improve that? Or is it where you can build up a relationship and work with people for years and years and years? What does that look like? So I hope this is landing and making sense, that these are the areas where, again, on the onion ring, we've now looked at the numbers and look where we've gone. We've gone so far away from the physical numbers into, but what does it mean? And then we get to really, how do the numbers in the business relate to us, to you? And this is the psychology of the numbers. How are we making our decisions? What resulted in us taking certain actions, making certain decisions? If you find that staff behave, your team behaves in a certain way in the office, and all of a sudden things change, what created that? What was the cause of that sudden change in everyone? If all of a sudden there is a bit of an upheaval, let's give you an example. When the hard lockdown, the COVID hard lockdown came, for people in their personal lives, and this would have filtered into business lives, if you understand the Maslow hierarchy of needs, you know, the triangle that everyone probably knows by now, where we have our survival needs and then we've got our needs of, and as we go higher on this pyramid, we eventually get to self-fulfillment and those kind of things. The minute you get to a point where there is a type of a crisis, any form of a crisis that is out of your hands, what could happen is certain people will go down into hunker down, survival of the fittest. It's me and my family. I need to protect. I need to hunker down. I need to protect my resources. Other people may go, okay, hold on. If I have to just work about myself, protect myself, this is way too real. So I'm going to go one level up and I'm going to go, how can I make this pain or this fear or this anxiety go away for others? So they go outside focus. So others will go inside focus. There's no right or wrong way here. It's not about who's right or wrong. That's not what it's about. It is about what is our natural way of dealing with crisis. Now, the same goes for our behavior, our decisions. Biases. Biases are those things where we've been raised with certain ideas. For instance, you may have heard that, something silly like, people with lots of money all behave like they don't care about the little guy. Okay, now if you've been raised with that, if you've been raised with that mindset, or you've been raised with that mindset of rich people are not nice, you're going to have a really tough time making money in your business or chasing the money in your business. And now you've got people coming into your organization. Now you may have people coming into your organization that share that value, but you've got a very high value on chasing the money. You're going to have a disconnect with your team. Now, the minute you have a disconnect with your team, how do you lead? How do you guide? How do you speak as one? So again, you can see these things in the numbers. Choices. I spoke about choices a little bit earlier. When you are in a good place, you are going to make choices very differently than when you are with your back against the wall. The thing is, those choices will still be underpinned by your biases, by your morals, by your ethics. So if you have a strong moral compass and you've got a strong ethics base, you will still make decisions with a certain mindset. But it may just look different than what it would have been in times of feast. So times of feast and times of famine is going to have different outcomes. Another thing that is such an indicator, how full is our tank? Now, what I mean with that is, when you've been rolling with the punches for a bit and your energy is low and you punch drunk, you get to a stage where you are just decision fatigued. And I've actually written a couple of articles on this, where as the psychology of a business owner, it doesn't matter how resilient you are. At some point, you get to where you are decision fatigued. So you need to understand, what are the triggers? What are the things that just empty your tank? What are the things that you know will fill your tank? And understand the difference. When are, for instance, your best concentration time, and when is the time that you can best interact? When are the times that you can handle the really difficult things, and when can you not? I, for instance, have always applied in any of my businesses, and I've always instilled this in my teams, apply the 24-hour rule. And what I mean with that is, if you get a really nasty call or a really nasty email or a really nasty situation, rather than be reactive, immediately go into I need to apply the 24-hour mindset. I need to apply the 24-hour rule. Remove yourself from the situation, because in that moment, what happens is adrenaline's going to kick in. You're going to have a fight or flight mode, and you may not, in actual fact, deal with it best. So what's going to happen? You're going to have to do damage control afterwards. And that's going to just suck the life out of everyone. Now, sometimes it's not possible to take the high and moral ground and apply the 24-hour rule. But where possible, if you know that in the back of your mind, you've given yourself permission to apply the 24-hour rule, you'll do a lot less damage control. You'll have to do a lot less damage control. You'll have time to go and think through and also assess that, listen, this thing that you perceived to be that nasty, if you take a step back, look at it with fresh eyes. A, was it that nasty, or were you that tired when it happened? B, when the person behaved in that manner, was it directly at you or was it at the situation? And did this person have a reason for behaving like this? So were they warranted? Now, I'm not saying that it is okay to treat people ill. But if someone's had a really bad client experience, or they've had a really bad product experience, and they fly off the handles, if you just take yourself out of that situation, you remove yourself from the emotions and you go, hold on, had I been in the same situation, how would I have behaved? Can I go back and fix the situation? How would I look at that? Do you understand that your decisions are now completely different? So although this is not a session on how do I deal with problem clients, what I'm saying is when we look at the numbers, we can very quickly determine that the numbers are really just the result and the indicator of decisions made in the business. The decisions are based on actions and decisions. And those decisions and actions come from what is happening inside of us. And unfortunately, we are not islands. The inside of us happens as a group. Now, if we are solopreneurs, in other words, Joe Single sitting behind a computer, working on our own, we still work with groups of people. We have our customers or clients. We have people that provide services to us. We may have outsourced services. We may still be reliant on people to provide certain things to us so we can provide to our clients. So even though we may think we're an island, we're not. And then, of course, we more often than not would have a life outside of our business. So we may have a spouse, children, pets, parents, the next door neighbors that never turn down their music and whose kid never stops screaming when we're trying to have a meeting. We have all these things. So sometimes we just need to take a step back and think about, hold on, is what will be the if this then that? If I do this now, what will be the effect? Okay, so that brings us to 20 minutes to the hour. And I don't think I need to go deeper into this, because what I wanted to just illustrate is to say to you guys, we think numbers tell us one thing. And my biggest passion when it comes to numbers is to remove the fear and the anxiety that numbers bring people. Remember earlier, the opening statement was numbers makes me break out in hives and gives me the sweats. And that's been my mission. I am such a nerd. I just love numbers, and I want people to love numbers. And if they can't love numbers, at least don't run the opposite way when you see a number. If you can understand that a number is nothing more than a story in a different format, it just looks different. It's just a story in a different format. And if you can understand that a number is just a story dying to tell you something, whether you are doing great or whether things are not that great, it's trying to tell you how to do better. That's all a number is. It is a something written differently, but it's just a story. And how you engage with that story, how you understand that story, how you like and love that story will very much, in the end, mirror back to you. So that's what I can leave you with. I'm going to stop sharing now, and that way move you back where I can see you. And then let's see if we have any questions. I'm not sure where I'm going to find questions. I'm on the chat. Oh, is there Q&A only? Oh, I don't see any Q&A. I have the chat block open here. So if you guys have any questions for me or comments, please, you can post them in the box. Candace.
Hey, Renate.
You are on mute, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Oh, maybe you're not on mute. Maybe my speaker stopped, because my speaker stopped playing when I waffle on for a while. Sorry.
Okay, because
I do numbers. I don't do people.
I think you do both perfectly. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Sorry.
Incredible, incredible. So there don't seem to be any questions. However, how do people connect with you? I know you gave us a link a little bit earlier, so I will just copy and paste. So for everyone who wants to find Renate, please do connect with her. I've just put it into the chat. Let me know if you can see that. But Renate, it's been such an incredible session. Thank you so much.
Oh,
I feel
thank
a lot easier with the numbers, even easier than I've been trying to feel. As you can see, my hands aren't clammy or sweaty. So,
Wonderful.
so thank you so much for taking your time to share with our incredible community. People loved you. People appreciated
Oh,
this session. So
thank
we
you.
hope that you'll be back soon.